And hello, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of the Cultured Gamer podcast. Today's episode is number 1, and we will be discussing Xbox emulation, Xenia, Dolphin, the works. We'll also be covering the Switch, not slowing down anytime soon. Is the multiverse dead? And DK Oldies possibly scamming customers. All that and more today on the Cultured Gamer. And welcome, everybody. The first episode. Finally, we made it, Taylor.
Finally made it. We finally got this thing going.
Dang, it took so long, man. It feels like it took forever.
Did.
It literally took a year to get this started.
It feels like, was that just a year or was there more to it? I feel like it might have been more, to be honest.
Maybe
we've been talking about this for a while, but I think
we've been planning it for a long time. It's needed a lot of work to get off the ground, but we're here today and we're ready to go. How are you doing today, Taylor?
I'm doing pretty good. It's kind of a weird day. Not quite the end of the week. Got some assignments done. I did a big midterm-ish assignment this morning. Had some time for some gaming, and now my wife has got the kids out for the afternoon, so it's kind of fantastic. So
awesome. Well, I didn't do the intro properly. My name is Jason Carmona. I'm the senior managing editor of The Cultured Nerd, and with me today is our guest, the editor-in-chief and owner of The Cultured Nerd, Taylor Murphy.
The guy, yep.
And just want to shoot it off real quick. What have you been playing?
So, kind of like everyone else in the world right now, I've been playing a ton of Hogwarts Legacy. That game has consumed me. I'm falling down every single rabbit hole I possibly can. I think right now my little internal ticker says I'm 40% complete on all the side stuff. I'm doing, I'm level like 29 or something. Mm-hmm. But mission-wise, I am very early in the game, and I think the mission levels are saying that I should be level 15 to do this mission. I'm level 27. So, the moment I unlock something, I then travel around the whole planet to find all the things that I can unlock with that. So I'm like, oh, I can open locks now. And I immediately just started like going down that rabbit hole. Or, oh, I have a broom now. Let's go to this area. Oh, I've got this spell. Let's solve these puzzles. And I went nuts very quickly.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it'll be a 100-hour game for me for sure.
Oh, definitely. I'm seeing tons of my friends pouring multiple hours into that game. I wish I could get into it. I'm just not a Harry Potter guy myself.
It actually is kind of cool because it feels like Harry Potter, but it also doesn't because it takes place like 200 years before Harry Potter. You got this vibe where you're like, I recognize the castle and a couple of the names, and that's it. Like everything else is very, very different, and it's really cool.
Well, right on. I'm playing a lot of multiplayer as of late. My son discovered video games within the last year. He pretty much took over my Nintendo Switch. We just got a Vita, so he's been on that nonstop too. We modded the Vita. Maybe that'll be a topic for another show. Just going to town on it. Threw a 120 gigabyte stick in there, SD to Vita, and just went to town on it, modded it, and going to town on it. He loves it. He's playing Dragon Ball. Yeah, he's hooked on Dragon Ball Battle of Gods right now. So
okay.
So all the time, 24/7, it's always Kaioken, Kamehameha. So it's just like we're eating dinner and you hear Kaioken.
That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. My son, he loves Dragon Ball Z and he loves all that stuff. So I picked him up. He's been playing a lot of Modern Warfare 2, which is just his new thing right now. But aside from that, he also has the Dragon Ball Z Kakarot that he's been playing. Nice. He wants to 100% all of his games before he moves on to another big game. So he 100%ed platinumed Ghost of Tsushima. Then he moved back over to another game, and now he's on that one and juggling Modern Warfare 2, Kakarot, and the Shinigami Chronicles for Demon Slayer. So
have you guys taken advantage of the PS5 upgrade for Kakarot?
I have, but he's playing it on his PS4 in his room. So night and day, just graphic wise, like it's really cool to see the new fresh coat of paint. It's kind of like the Last of Us, when you had like the Last of Us PS3 next to the Last of Us PS5, and you're like, when you play the PS5, you're like, this is what I remember the game looking like. And then when you look at the
Mhm.
other game, you're like, is that what it really looked like? So
Wow, it
it's
has
pretty
shown its
cool.
age. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so we're playing a lot of Lego games right now. Lego Star
Okay.
Wars, Lego Marvel superheroes. Yeah, he's really into the Lego, that Lego universe right now. He just watched the Lego movie for the first time, so
Nice.
everything's awesome right now, unfortunately.
It's
um,
not bad.
yeah,
That's not bad at all.
yeah, no, he could be into worse things. But we have some breaking news that we got to discuss. That's just
Yes, let's bring it up.
so let's bang those out because we have quite a show today. So let's go down the rabbit hole of the breaking news. First breaking news: Like a Dragon Ishin PS5 combat demo is now online for download. The game is due out February 21st, 2023, and it follows pretty much the entire cast of the Yakuza Like a Dragon franchise, only this time it's based out in feudal Japan. This is a remake of a classic PlayStation game for modern audiences with updated controls and vastly updated visuals. The second breaking news today is that PSVR embargo is dropping. Reviews are all over the place now, and it looks like it's pretty hot. Everybody's
It's
really
very interesting because I saw IGN gave it a 9, and
a
then Game Informer
9.
gave it a C because they don't like VR apparently. So they were like, this sucks. But it was weird.
Yeah,
I was reading both reviews, and I'm like, I can see why IGN loves it because they were big fans of VR and they were big fans of the PSVR 1. Obviously, the system is dramatically improved on every capacity. And then I look at Game Informers, and they're just like, it's not VR is not where it should be yet, so we're not giving it a good grade. And I'm like, what do you want it to be? So I'm very confusing reviews.
definitely. And I'm an owner of PSVR 1. I love it. And it's definitely takes some getting used to. The first iteration had a lot of cords, had a couple boxes, dongles, and basically it was quite a mess to deal with. The mocap balls were very insensitive. You had to use the camera. The tracking was always all over the place. So
Yep.
I'm very looking forward to this new iteration. The one string cable look is very nice. I like the fact that we don't have to use the camera, don't have to use the processing box. It's just plug and play. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I don't have my own yet. It's very limited, but I will be getting one hopefully very soon. Fingers crossed.
Yep.
The next and final breaking news story of the day today is the Tetris trailer just dropped. Tetris, the movie follows how one man risks his life to outsmart the KGB, the Russian government, and turn Tetris into a worldwide phenomenon. Tetris is due to drop on Apple TV on March 31st, streaming everywhere. Taylor, have you had an opportunity to look at this trailer yet?
I did. It's such a weird, like, it's produced by Matthew Vaughn from like the Kingsman fame, and which is really cool. Directed by I think John Baird. The name may not be a lot for people. He's kind of known for BBC TV. That's really what he is. So it's kind of an unknown, out of nowhere kind of a project. But the actor, I mean, it's Taron Egerton from Kingsman, and I loved the story behind Tetris. And every time someone's like, "Oh, Tetris isn't that cool of a game?" I'm like, "Yeah, but there's a story behind it. It was made to train Russian spies. It's like, it's insane."
Yeah,
And
it's
actually seeing it in movie form is going to be fun because I get to be like, "Hey, by the way, you know all those conspiracy tinfoil hat stories I told you about Tetris? Here's the movie of it." So lots of
yeah.
fun.
I had a Game Boy growing up. Tetris was obviously the pack-in, and spent multiple hours. To this day, every iteration of Tetris I purchase. Tetris Effect, I own that. The PSVR version is amazing. I have it on Xbox. I'm a Tetris whore. I love Tetris.
It was the first game I played earlier this week when they dropped last week actually, when they dropped the Game Boy for Nintendo Switch. I'm like, Tetris. And I went back to the old school Tetris right off the bat. It was the first thing I did,
Yeah,
and then I went to Zelda.
it's a classic, and it never gets old. You could jump in, and it's always entertaining.
It's always
Um,
Tetris.
it's always Tetris. So let's jump into some of our news stories for today.
Sure.
The Nintendo Switch doesn't show any signs of slowing down anytime soon, which is great news for current Nintendo owners looking to, uh, you know, take advantage of their vast catalog, maybe blow it up a little bit more. The company's plans is to grow the Switch's 122 million install base with new and classic games. So this kind of makes it seem like we won't be getting the much rumored Switch Pro or the next iteration of the Switch, at least in this calendar year or fiscal year, to be clear.
Yeah,
The company,
I don't see it happening for a few years if that's the numbers they're talking about. Like,
yeah,
I mean, we had the rumors of the Nintendo Switch 2 last year, I think, or the year before, one of those two. It was, in the last few years, we had the rumors. Turns out the rumors were real, but
mhm,
Nintendo killed the project in favor of the OLED version because they didn't want to abandon the Switch just yet,
correct.
which seems to me like I remember growing up when the Nintendo Super Nintendo first came out, and like I remember my local Blockbuster and like Hollywood Video basically being like, we can't cover these games anymore. So they were just like almost like a fire sale for all the Nintendo cartridges because they're like, this is just it's new hardware, new system, new everything.
Hmm.
And I feel like Nintendo's not sure yet if they want to incorporate a new cartridge system or if they want to adapt the current one or if they want to update it because the little flash cards that they have, it's kind of proprietary. It's not going to be like a Game Boy where you just make a smaller cartridge with the same basic hardware. If they do update the Switch, are they going to keep the same file size? Are they going to let those file sizes be bigger? Are they going to do a whole different medium?
Hmm.
Is it going to be like the PSP and the PS Vita where it's just 100% different and you can only play the the software or not the cartridges? Like, how is that going to work? And I think that's why Nintendo just said, let's just put out a new model of the Switch and just ride this pony until people are tired of us.
And it doesn't seem like people are getting tired anytime soon. My like again, I just mentioned my son discovering the Switch just this past year. He's absolutely glued to it. It comes with him every morning to school. The minute he gets into the car afterwards, he's like, "Where's my Switch, Dad? Is it charged?" And he has Dragon Ball Z Kakarot for that. So when he's not at home
Yeah.
playing, he's on his Switch playing it, figuring out where to go, and then he goes back to the PS5 version and schools it. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, these numbers are astronomical. 122.55 million units. How do you move on from that? How do you cater to the current audience when you want to introduce that next iteration? Like you were saying with the game cards, I do believe that they'll probably keep the same game cards, probably just increase the memory within. That would allow for more data, deeper graphics, more uncompressed sound. Um, I see them using the Switch template, probably creating a Pro version eventually, but I don't see them moving away from that cart. I think it's too lucrative for them.
Yeah.
It's very small. I would imagine they're not super expensive to produce, given that they're in micro in size. And if they want to just move on to a Switch Pro and evolve, everything in terms of graphics, hardware, whatnot, they already have a hardware that they've already invested in and has a proven track record. Plus, if you
Yeah.
lose one, it's a $60 to $70 pop. So,
Mhm.
that's a good turnaround. I think
Yeah. Yeah.
they're probably going to keep it that way. So
It's
let's
going to be
talk
very
about
interesting to see.
yeah,
So,
let's talk about the next topic real quick. Multiverse seems to be dead in the water. So this was a game that came out, I want to say last year. Taylor, it was last year, correct?
yeah, yeah. DC WB's Multiversus. The when it came out, they announced it like, oh, here's Shaggy, here's Batman, here's Wonder Woman. You can fight with Adventure Time characters. Lots of fun. And it came out with a bang and it's kind of died in a whimper because
Right.
I think the biggest issues, like I had it on my PlayStation and I played the crap out of it for that first week. I did the beta, I did all that stuff. It was really fun. But the free to play model works to an extent. And I feel like
Hmm.
if people wanted Super Smash Brothers, just charge the $50 for the game,
Mm-hmm.
unlock all the characters. Because when moment people said, "Oh, it was free," but oh wait, I have to buy the characters. They don't see if I buy all 10 of these characters, it's $50. They see it as, why is it this much money? Like they look at the individual costs, not what it could have been if they would have just paid for it. And I feel like that was probably what made it harder for that game to really latch on to people.
So get this, Multiversus daily peak Steam player count has dropped more than 99% since launch. The game dropped below a daily peak of 1,000 players for the first time this week.
Ouch.
That's really bad. So if you're WB at this point, Warner Brothers Discovery, and you're cutting costs everywhere that you can, do you can this game?
I think so, honestly, because it makes no sense to continue a game that has already had a very jarring and very inconsistent launch of characters. That, I mean, it's free to play, but you have to recoup the costs with people buying characters. And if the characters aren't consistent, like a new character a month, if it's not consistent, then people aren't going to keep showing up. They're not going to keep playing, especially if they're not characters people care about.
Mm-hmm.
So
now, wasn't there also a controversy within the game of them using Lord of the Ring characters?
Yeah, there was supposed to be Gandalf and Frodo and or is it Gandalf and Bilbo and Gollum, but there was this long-standing rumor that even though that they had the rights to the movie versions of the characters, the Tolkien estate like filed some sort of like a quiet injunction to keep them from doing it in video games for this capacity, and they just like pulled the characters completely from the roadmap. Which, whether or not any of those rumors are true, it kind of sounds like it's possible, just given the drama that's been happening with the Tolkien estate and the Lord of the Rings brand as it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I have myriad of thoughts of that, and I feel like the Tolkien estate clearly doesn't understand what their grandfather was doing, because from people to people, I know I'm personally nothing like my grandpa. So when I say that I speak for him, his personality and my personality are two different things. And what he would have been okay with is nothing what I would have been okay with, and things like that. So like, estates are hard to deal with because they're more interested in preserving the brand, and that's more of a self-interest instead of a legacy interest. Like, what would have grandpa been okay for? Or no, rather, what would be good for us lucratively to keep this brand going for another 100 years? Like that's, it gets tricky, because when Amazon comes in and offers like $1 billion to buy rights to make a TV show, and that TV show sucks, they see the $1 billion as a way to survive another few years, not the quality of the show, because I'm pretty sure Tolkien would have hated the show.
Oh yeah, definitely tarnishing the legacy.
So it's kind of a tricky thing, because you have Warner Brothers who, yes, I understood the complaints from the Tolkien estate that they made the Lord of the Rings an action film. Like, I get that. Like, that was their big complaint, that it was less lore heavy, it was more action oriented. And sure, there were some aspects to that. That's how you get audiences. But at the same time, Tolkien fans love the movies, and Tolkien fans hate the Amazon show. So it's very tricky to see that they're now aligning themselves with everyone but Warner Brothers, because they want the money instead of what's good for the legacy.
Now, do you think they take another stab at this business model and try to do a Multiversus 2 and just shit can this first one? Or do you think that they just move on and just license out these characters for...
I personally think they just move on. I know with James Gunn and Peter Safran running the DC studios, the likelihood of them licensing any of these DC characters out to anyone other than projects that they approve is not going to happen. So, I think I lost Jason for a second there. But in reality, I don't see for a second that these projects move forward in a way that work on this kind of scale anymore. I see that this may have just become a one and done, and that's probably the end of it. So unfortunately, fans of Multiversus, they're probably going to be sorely disappointed with the reality of what's happening. So But while we're doing some technical issues on Jason's side, I will just go ahead and jump into the very next topic. That way the show doesn't have to be hindered by technical difficulties on that end. The next topic was right off the bat was DK Oldies. A lot of people who do see these ads everywhere on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, they're kind of, if you search for games, if you search for anything, you see this guy pop up saying, oh, we do this customer service. We buy these old games, we rip them apart, we open them up, we clean them up. Everything's fantastic. And turns out, there have been some allegations that DK Oldies is not as much as the white knight as they claim they are. In reality, if the issue is what exactly it is, like there's been concerns that people with the repair process, if they say, oh, they plugged the game in and this isn't working, they gut the machine, they gut the project to fix just that. But there were some users on Reddit, on social media, who pointed out that he spent $400 on a Gen 1 PS3, and when he opened it up, he had the 10, 15-year-old thermal paste still in there. The system was riddled with dirt, grime, and everything in between, and it was just a whole hot mess of a console. And in reality is that if this is the case, you have people who buy these retro consoles who claim to clean them up, and then they upcharge an insane amount, because this PS3 charged the guy over $400 for this thing, and then he had to open it up and just start cleaning. So a lot of people are just going against them. They're just claiming that DK Oldies is a scam, and there's also been rumors that DK Oldies DK Oldies is just fighting on the topics of what they're claiming. Like, they claim that all their games are refurbished, and the discs are, sure, they're clean, they're cleaned up, that's fine. But they also claim that the cartridges, that they always go through and take out fake ones, artificial cartridges, counterfeits, things like that. And then you have people now popping up on Reddit claiming that they have a counterfeit system that was sent to them that DK Oldies clearly didn't catch or didn't notice. And a lot of these allegations, whether or not they are true or not, it is tarnishing the brand. So it's now putting into question if these things are legitimate or not. So because of that, because of the reality is that the retro market is in a whole different spot than they thought they were. And now Jason's back. So fantastic. I just went through the rundown of everything that was with the DK Oldies. I talked about the Reddit post of the of the guy finding the $400 PS3 just being a dumpster fire. I did also mention that there's been other allegations that counterfeit cartridges, like Super Nintendo and Game Boy cartridges, slipping through the cracks, even though they made this whole marketing campaign that they are able to find the counterfeits and prevent them from happening. So it's been kind of a mess for them.
Yeah, DK Oldies really prides themselves in, and this is our sub main topic of the day. I wanted to take a little bit of time and discuss this for a little bit, because the amount of reports that are coming in are ridiculous. People are doing tear opens the immediate moment they get their DK Oldies console that they spend $200, $300, $400, like you had mentioned previously, on, and they look like absolute trash inside. This is unacceptable.
I'm going to throw up that PS3 picture again, because that's insane. Because I have a Gen 1 PS3, and
So do I.
I've opened it twice, and neither time, including right now, it looks like that. Like that is horrendous. And if that slipped through the cracks off of, like, literally, honestly, some of the most annoying ad videos I see, where the guy's like, "Hey, it's me," and then he like jumps in and says, "Look what we did," and it's like so energetic and in your face, and he's like, "Oh, we tear the system apart, we do this," and it showed like a montage of one of his techs going down to the microchip and just like scrubbing it with a toothbrush and stuff. And then you get a guy who spent $400 and it looks like the case hasn't been opened in a decade. That's
or at
insane.
all, like literally
Yeah.
at all.
Well, like
You
I said,
have
in that the teardown,
that
he pointed out that the thermal paste is the same thermal paste that the
was
thing
just
came
about
in
to say
stock
that. Yeah.
10 years ago, which is
Yeah,
just, oh,
like how do you not service that at all? Like
yeah,
um I do a better job of just opening apart my consoles and just dusting them off as a hobby, you know.
yeah,
For somebody who is paying a premium $400 for a PS3, you know, at least take off the plastic and undust it, you know,
yeah.
like and yeah, it's just ridiculous that people are paying so much for these consoles and they're getting away with it. And I'm glad to see that the community at large is calling them out now and exposing this before um, it gets any worse. And uh, you know, hopefully they turn around, they improve the procedures and protocols. Um, because yeah, if I were to spend 400, I don't know about you, Taylor, but if you spend $400 on a refurbished console and they claim it's refurbished, it definitely needs to be refurbished.
So
Miss,
a lot of people think of me as the movie guy, the DC guy, and we've talked about this at length. I watch Star Wars and play video games far more than I pay attention to movies. Um, and we joke about this. A buddy of mine, he's actually part of TCN, a Geek Burrito on
Mhm,
socials. Gabe, he and I go out of our way to find old consoles and fix them. Uh,
mhm,
we found 2 or 3 of these old busted up Gen 1 PS3s. We took them apart, we cleaned them. He had the heat gun, so I had him fix all the heating issues.
mhm.
And now these babies run like nothing, because if you know what you're doing, it's not hard to do it yourself.
Yeah,
And that's
totally.
the ridiculous part. Like we fixed GameCubes. I had my GameCube crap out on me, and the optic drive died. I spent $60, bought myself another broken GameCube for something else, and then we just Frankenstein them together, made one
Mhm.
beautiful one that worked.
Yeah,
It's
you
easier than buying parts. Is just buy an old broken one and just take that for parts.
yeah, and just take the parts that you don't need on anymore and just, you know,
Yeah,
like you said, Frankenstein them. It's not something that you couldn't YouTube a video and figure out in 5 minutes and just literally do it verbatim, you know.
yeah, because
And
there was iFixit has like thousands of videos of how to do these things,
right?
and they're like 20 minutes, and they're bookmarked, and it's really not hard. So when people say, "Oh, DK Oldies skipped out on this cleaning process," I'm like, I've seen cleaning videos. It's literally a 20-minute ordeal. Just take out the screws,
Yeah.
and the biggest trick is they're like, "Oh, but what if I lose the screws?" What my buddy and I do, we get a piece of cardboard, we trace around the console, and then we
Mhm.
stick the screws through the outline that we did, and it's not hard.
It's
It's
like common sense stuff.
yeah,
Like I understand. Like people are getting consoles, screws are missing, they're loose inside. There's chipping on the plastic. It's I I even if they're getting these consoles in mass amounts, the amount of negligence that's going in. Like if they said that they were used, that would be one thing, but they
yeah,
are advertising
claiming
these as
refurbished.
refurbished. So clearly by those photos they are not, and that is false
There was
advertisement.
there was one photo I saw, and like I said, while you were loading back in, like I said, a lot of these allegations, it's possible that they could be fabricated. It's 100% possible, because there's no way to prove that these are like, they could say, "Oh, I have the receipt," and yeah, that's cool, but they can also, I can fake shit like that too. Like I can
Hmm.
buy 2 consoles, one from them, one from like Goodwill, and then claim the one
Right.
from Goodwill is the one they sent me. Like it's not hard to do this, but the amount that's coming through is kind of insane.
Hmm.
And I saw one that came up, which I'm not sure if it's real or not. It was in a box, and he bought like a Nintendo 64 cartridge, and the cartridge was like cracked, and the whole corner was broken up in the box because they didn't wrap it the way it was wrapped in all the ads. It was just put in with packing peanuts, and the UPS truck like stepped on it or something, and it just destroyed it. And I was like, okay, well, if you show us on your videos that everything is wrapped this insane amount, and people are getting stuff that's not wrapped to that same amount of quality, then yeah, you should stop advertising that's how you do it.
Hmm.
So it's very tricky to see right now what's happening with this retro market, because the market still is there. I mean, we have the pocket. What's that thing called?
The Analog Pocket.
The Analog Pocket, yes.
Mhm.
A beautiful piece of hardware. Probably the best thing that it is anyone come out of like Game Boy wise, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance. Then they have like all their attachments to play all the retro Neo Geo, the Sega Game Gear, like just such a cool piece of hardware. And this thing is selling out like hotcakes. And people are like,
sold out.
So clearly the market for retro gaming is now more than it ever has been.
Yeah,
because
and
it went from being going down to like Goodwill and finding a tub of old games. Now you have to find specialty shops for these things.
Yeah, definitely. Ever since the pandemic, it really exploded and got that whole market kind of got out of control. People looking for games, emulation could be a route for them and they could save some money. But I have a couple friends who would argue that emulation doesn't compare to actual hardware. And again, for DK Oldies to be taking advantage of the consumer, knowing that the demand is there right now for retro gaming, to be janking up their prices that high and not doing their due diligence in terms of refurbishing. I'm glad that people are speaking out about it now, and hopefully they course correct before permanent damage is done, if not done already. Let's move on to the next topic real quick. Xbox admits that Game Pass is cannibalizing game sales. So the Xbox maker tells the UK competitive. Let me start that over. The Xbox maker, Microsoft, tells the UK Competition and Markets Authority that in their provisional report that the Microsoft Activision Blizzard acquisition includes an admission from Microsoft that putting games onto its Game Pass subscription service cannibalizes sales of those titles. Microsoft also submitted that its internal analysis shows that a redacted percentage decrease in base game sales 12 months following their addition to Game Pass. So let's look at something
This is something that I've been saying for a long time. Like, I love PlayStation Plus for what they do and how they do it. But even then, we had that horror story from a few years ago about the Oddworld Abe's Exodus remake, about how it was like a death sentence that the game was going to be launching on PlayStation Plus because they got a flat rate instead of potential game sales. And then Microsoft comes out with this idea of essentially becoming the Netflix of games, where here's every game that we will have on our platform will end up on Game Pass. A buddy of mine works as a manager at GameStop and says that their GameStop section for Xbox, no one ever buys anything because they just subscribe to Game Pass because it's easier.
I have Game Pass. Do you have Game Pass?
I have Game Pass, yeah. And I mean, it was so I bought my Xbox Series X. The big fridge. I bought the fridge, guy. I did it in one of those like in that one payment plan thing where you get the console and you get Xbox Game Pass Ultimate.
The All Access program.
That's the one. I bought that. I did it that way. So I have it. I pay like $30 or $35 a month for the next few years, and it's technically cheaper to do it that way than to buy the console and the Game Pass. Like, it was, I looked at the math and I'm like, I see what they're doing. They're selling it at a loss, but they're keeping me around for the next few years. It's fun that the games are there, but I'll say this: like, Persona 3 and Persona 4 re-released on modern consoles last week, and I downloaded them on my Xbox. It was fantastic, and I still bought them for my Switch because I don't know what it is about just the Game Pass model, but every time I log in and I see the game, I'm like, cool. And it kind of loses its luster. It's not as exciting as going to the store and buying the game anymore.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird. I don't know how I feel about it.
I'm going to try to pull up see if I can find the Hi-Fi Rush numbers real quick. But that, like you said, that's another example of a game, much like Oddworld, that debuted on the service, didn't get a physical release, and did gangbusters for Game Pass. Everyone's talking about it, critical praise. But so it says right here, according to Forbes, Hi-Fi Rush appears to have out-earned Forspoken's launch week sales on PC. So at least it shows on PC that they are profitable.
Yes.
I know that the
The-
game sells for about $40 if you don't have Game Pass, which is actually a good price considering that most next gen or current gen at this point games typically range between $60 to $70.
yeah. I mean, how about that
Um,
Tears of the Kingdom announcement? Like that's
yeah,
we'll
that's
see.
going to be a $70 drop.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
everyone is going to
so
do it. So
yeah, so I can understand that, obviously, of course, Game Pass is cannibalizing sales. Who would pay a $70 game brand new when it's day one on Game Pass for only $15? I mean, where's the logic in spending $70 when I can get it immediately for 15 as part of a service that I already pay for? You know,
So it
uh,
reminds me a lot of how when I used to work for Amazon, and there was a topic of conversation that came up all the time when the idea of how is Amazon Prime profitable, and
mhm,
it's like any subscription service, right? It's like any gas station that offers you a membership card and gives you a discount for gas. Like, obviously they take a hit,
mhm,
but the reason why they do these is to keep you around
mhm.
because you're more likely to make that your one-stop shop if you offer a small discount or some amenity that people want to do than you are to, I guess, be like me where I have Game Pass, but then because I have my Switch, because I have my PS5, because I have everything else, I do still play more on other, like, the idea is that Game Pass should be enticing enough to make me centralized to Xbox.
Mhm.
And that was the idea, is that they'll make more money selling the consoles. They'll make more money when the game gets taken off Game Pass. People will be like, oh, I got to buy it now because I was X amount into the game.
Mhm.
Um, the business model makes sense to keep people on that hardware and that ecosystem, but like they admitted in their big FTC argument, it is cannibalizing actual game sales, and the publishers, the people who are actually making these games, the devs, they're making their money elsewhere. They're not
Mhm.
making it on Xbox. They're making it off of Steam, off of PS5. That's where they're
Right.
getting money. So it's
Mhm.
a very, very interesting conversation.
So let me ask you an off-the-topic question and relates to this report, since it involves the acquisition of Microsoft and Activision. Do you see this helping their argument that they should buy Activision?
I see this as being they're probably going to be in more trouble with it because following this admission, I remember reading that the UK basically said we're not going to approve it, but you should probably think about letting some of these things go. Like if you want Activision, you have to separate it from Blizzard, or you have to separate it. Like they're basically saying you can buy parts, but not the whole thing. And the
Yeah,
FTC is kind of doing the same thing. They're basically saying you can't have the whole pie, but you can have a slice of it. So pick the slice you want.
I've
And
even heard
that's
a recommendation that uh, they've even possibly have recommended that they sell off Call of Duty for this
yeah, yeah.
transaction to go
Like
through,
you can have
and
Activision, you just can't have Call of Duty. That has to be
that
separate.
is wild. Like
That's why
that
they're
would be
doing
the
it.
main
That's what they're
that would be
after.
the main purpose of purchasing Activision. I mean,
Yeah, they'll be like, fine, we'll just buy Call of Duty. The rest of it can go elsewhere. Like that's what's
yeah,
probably happened.
exactly. Exactly. Just by the
So
studio and the IP itself, and you can have the rest. Activision, Blizzard can stay their own entity.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So hopefully they
Yeah.
start making a profit soon because Xbox is losing money on Game Pass, hands and fists. So
They are.
um,
They are.
let's move on to the next topic real quick before our main topic of
We're
the
kind of on
show.
the same topic though.
Yes,
Activision,
Activision Blizzard. Yes, they're back in the news.
but
so,
not for a controversy. But it could
so
be considered a controversy.
yeah, I think that this is definitely controversial. So, ever since the pandemic, a lot of businesses have moved to a remote work model. And in some cases, these companies have flourished in this business model, this work model. It does appear that, according to this report, let me pull it up real quick from gamedeveloper.com. Uh, Activision Blizzard is planning to end full remote work. And there actually has been an update since we added this to the topics. A spokesperson for Activision Blizzard has indeed confirmed that employees will have to return to the office for 3 days per week starting in April. So those
That's
obviously with special privileges or conditions that need to be met will be allowed to continue working from home. Otherwise, if you are healthy and able, you're going back to the office. A lot of people at Activision and Blizzard are not happy about this, Taylor.
it's a very interesting thing because I know with Amazon, for instance, so Amazon basically just quietly said that if you're working, like they're closing down their call centers, their data center, they're closing down these buildings because they found that the work from home angle works better for their employees,
Hmm.
and it makes no sense to pay a mortgage on a facility that they're not using. So
Hmm.
they just shifted completely the other direction. And I think a lot of these companies like Activision, they have these big headquarters where they used to house all these employees, and they're like, we can't get rid of the building, so you have to come back to work.
Hmm.
And it's it's very much a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of a thing. Like they lose money by not using the facility, but they also now they're pissing off their employees by taking away kind of an amenity that so many people had gotten for the last few
Yeah,
years. It started off as a necessity, and now it's not a necessity anymore. And I think that's
right.
why people are mad.
Yeah.
I
I
have to
could.
wake up at 6 and get dressed and shower before I come to work. I can't just do it from my pajamas.
Well, not only that, but you got to take in mind too, the process of getting ready in the morning, the
Yeah,
commute, the money it takes to commute to and from. With gas prices as high as they are right now,
yeah.
definitely you would think more companies would be encouraging more remote work if the work gets done and it's been proven, which it has been. Um, you would think that these companies would, you know, try to encourage just a little bit more often, but it doesn't seem like
You would
that.
think.
Like you said, yeah, like you said, buildings need to be paid for, spaces need to be filled, and it looks like these guys are going back to work in April. I'm sorry, guys, but your remote time has ended. um, yeah, it's terrible. You get used to working from home, and you get into the vibe of doing a certain thing for 3 years, and now you got to go back to the way it was prior, and it's kind of like,
See,
well, it's not as
I
efficient as it used to be,
yeah,
you know?
100%. And see, I personally don't like the work from. I don't like working from home because to me, my home is my zen place. Like
Hmm.
if my home becomes the place where I also work, I feel like I've now I lost that sanctity of the home.
Hmm.
I feel like I have to like I told my wife that if they ever if I get when I'm done with I'm done with my career schooling and I get all that degrees done and I get the job that I get and they're like, oh, work from home. I told her I'm going to build a shed in the backyard and that'll be my
Hmm.
office so that like, at least I have
A
to
guest
get ready
house.
and walk somewhere because
Yeah. Oh,
I can't
definitely.
I can't do it. Like if I'm just walking down the hall to a different room, it's not the same.
Yeah, and it in terms of teamwork too, I think, personally, I know that these developers are upset about going back to the office after being so comfortable at home for the last 3 years. But there's only so much that could be done on a Slack chat, in
Or a
terms of
Zoom call
communication, or a
like that.
Zoom call in
Yeah.
terms of communication. It is very uh, it is much more productive when you can walk over to your partner's desk and say, hey, this is what I'm working on, this is the progress I've made in real time, and then you could just bounce off ideas. There's a lot to be said about returning to the work environment. I hope that they find peace in going back to work, and that we get the games that we should have gotten. I know there's quite a few games that are still delayed because of this whole pandemic process. So I hope uh, game development picks up again and runs more smoothly.
I hope so
Um,
too.
yeah. So okay, the main topic for today. We're going to talk about Xbox emulation. I know this is
Yeah.
about to piss off some people at Microsoft, but honestly, I don't care. We're going to talk about Xbox emulation. So within the last couple of weeks, I have been dabbling with retail mode and dev mode emulation. Now, this is a picture of emulators that are running in retail mode. From the left, you see RetroArch. There's the XBPS2. There's Xenia, which we'll go in more in depth in a minute. Then you see Dolphin, Flycast, which is the Dreamcast emulator, PPSSPP, which is the gold D-pad looking one, and that tiny little duck right there is Duck Station. That's the PS1 emulator that upscales to 4K. So when these emulators first debuted, they were strictly in dev mode. Dev mode is a an application that you could purchase for about $20, and it side loads programs in a off retail dev mode that allows you to configure, program, and create homebrew apps. These applications got their start in dev mode, and then eventually some Swifty hackers or developers in the homebrew scene.
In this day and age, it's kind of the same thing, to be
Kind of the
honest.
same thing.
The more I learn how to program, the more I learn that it's literally the same thing.
Yeah. So basically, they found a loophole and a way to host these emulators for a brief time on the Microsoft Store. And this episode, we won't go into it, but maybe in the future, once the Xenia app is more intuitive and works 100% or at least 90%, we'll do a tutorial and kind of show you guys how to get those apps up and running. But basically, all it really takes is you kind of join a Discord. Easier to do it through the Xbox. You can use the Edge browser, and you try to get an invite to this Discord. The Discord invites you to a website that offers links, and these links, when they are online, will take you directly to the Microsoft Store where these apps are hosted. Now, I don't know how these developers are getting these UWPs onto the Microsoft Store. They are swiftly taken down within a couple of hours to days. So if you do find a link and it works, download it and run the app immediately. That way it stays on your console, because if you download it and don't run it and it disappears from the Microsoft Store, you cannot open that app again. So there has been 2 recent updates to these emulators. The first one's going to be Dolphin. So Dolphin is a standalone GameCube Wii emulator. It runs very, very well. RetroArch also has a built-in core that allows for Wii and GameCube playback, but not at the near capability of this standalone retail mode version of Dolphin. I kid you not, I was firing up Twin Snakes and I almost got to the end of the first disc in one night. It's amazing. Everything plays, I want to say 90 to 95% accuracy. It looks very smooth. You can upscale up to 4K. Some performance may differ between games depending on the graphical pull that it has, the emulator committing to. But other than that, I mean, this is pretty much GameCube running on the Xbox Series S and X. The next new app that was released is the Xenia, which we're going to talk about in depth right here. So Xenia, for those that aren't knowledgeable, is a PC emulator that was recently ported to Xbox. And what this emulator does, it allows you to play Xbox 360 games. This comes in handy, or can come in handy, especially when you want to play those games that aren't a part of the backwards compatibility list. Pictured here is myself running the Xenia app. I am running Mortal Kombat Arcade Collection, which is not backwards compatible, and as you can see, it is running on Series X. I've also tried a few other games, including GoldenEye. This GoldenEye is not the released version that we saw a couple weeks ago in Game Pass and Rare Replay. This GoldenEye is the elusive 360 remake that was never released and leaked a couple of years prior. It runs smooth. With the standard version of Xenia UWP, it's only about 50% compatible, and I want to say you have the best luck running XBLA games. There is a newer version that is online called Xenia Canary, and Xenia Canary will run full blown Xbox games, 360 games, I should say. Now, we tried a few of those games. We got Stranglehold running, we got 50 Cent Blood in the Sand running, and we've got El Shaddai running. So El
El
Shaddai is a
Shaddai
personal
is such a
favorite.
fun game, right? That's just a weird one.
Yeah, I love that game.
Like
That's
a
going to
lot of
be another
people,
topic for another day, though. We're going to have to
that
do a
should be another
walkthrough for
topic.
that one.
I bought that game. I blind bought that game when I heard what it was about, and I'm like, I have to try this out.
Oh, yeah.
And then when I started playing it, I'm like, it so much reminds me of like how Nier plays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's like it's essentially Nier, but with like Old Testament shit. Like that's what it basically
very
like,
biblical. Yeah. Hinduism,
it's like here is stuff from out of the Old Testament and the Kabbalah, and let's do this weird way possible. And I'm like, oh, this is such a cool game.
Yeah, and the the visual aesthetic is very pleasing too. Yeah, it's so nice. Weird. It's so weird, but it's gorgeous.
Weirdly pretty game.
Yeah, for a 360, also, it's actually aged pretty well. Considering
I bought it on the PS3, so I never saw.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Yeah, but so Xenia is blowing this Xbox scene wide open. It's kind of crazy to see so much progress being made as quickly as it has. Definitely, I'm not quite sure how Microsoft feels about this. They probably aren't too happy about this, but I mean, they can't be too upset if they're not making any more efforts to bring back backwards compatibility, or at least expand that.
Right, and that's always the tricky part, right? Like when I saw that when Nintendo killed all those ROM sites with lawsuits, a lot of people were like, "But if you're not doing anything with these games, why does it matter?" Mm-hmm. And now they're doing stuff with those games, and that's actually kind of like, it's kind of nice. It's not as fast as I would like, because I have the SNES Classic. I hacked that thing within like an hour, and I loaded up like 200 games onto it because I was like, I like the games you gave me, but I want to play Chrono Trigger, and I want to play and I just started like throwing every game I could think of on this thing.
Sure. Yeah, now, I did the same thing with my PlayStation Classic. It came with what?
I want to track one down just for that purpose. Like I should have bought one when they were on discount. Now it's impossible to find one that's not.
Oh, man. I remember I went to Fry's before they all shut down, and they were literally selling them for like $25, and I bought like 4 of them. I wanted to get more, but they wouldn't let me buy more.
You still have 4 of them?
No, I don't have them anymore. I modded them and sold them all. Okay. And I think I gave my brother the last one. But again, going back to Xenia and Dolphin, you could play them on real hardware, but at this point, it's like those consoles aren't compatible with most televisions. And ultimately, I think, the Xbox is slowly becoming the system to get, in terms of
aspect,
in terms of, an all B1 emulator box. The Series S is a lot more attractive now at $300, when you are dabbling with the Pis and the single board computers and those retro emulation do-it-yourself boxes. At $300, you have a meaty console and an emulator box that could pretty much play almost everything you throw at it. Right. And I'm very curious to see how the scene's going to develop. I've heard some rumors about a possible PS3 UWP coming out soon. I'm not expecting too much from that. It's just simply because the amount of cores that they would have to program for.
It also kind of begs this question to me, like I always see these emulators come out and they're just absolutely fantastic. Mm-hmm. And I see the games the game studios like PlayStation, Microsoft, them just swiftly try to kill them with lawsuits after lawsuits and things like that. And it's really hard because a lot of the stuff is just open source, and their argument is a valid argument. I'm making a program that reads files. I'm not doing anything illegal.
Right.
However, the people that are ripping the games, they're the ones actually breaking the law. I just give them an ability to view the rips, and that's the argument that's kept them safe, and that's the truth. But when PlayStation, for instance, has not figured out properly how to emulate the PS3 correctly, if some bunch of dev just kids in their basement just come out with a fantastic emulator, instead of killing it with lawsuits, buy the thing. Buy it.
Yeah, because they've already done half your work for you.
Yeah. It's like when I see people make these like I saw a few years back this beautiful fan-made 4K upscaled version of Chrono Cross, and same thing with Final Fantasy IX, and Square Enix killed both those projects. I'm like, they're doing the work for you. Just buy it from them.
Yeah.
Tell the kid, oh yeah, you worked this much money. Here's $1 million. Oh my God, their life has changed. And then guess what you get? Finish the code, sell the thing for $50 a pop, and you just made 50 million.
Yeah, like, exactly. Easy peasy.
It's not rocket science. Like, the open source model works for a reason. In the world of programming, people love open source because it creates beautiful work.
Right.
Like, there's a reason why most devs use Ubuntu, because it's such an easy operating system that's downloaded for free, customize it for what you want. There you go. It's, instead of being like, you can't play with that, that's my toy. Be like, wow, you made my toy better. Let me buy the new toy from you and let me sell it and package it. Like, or like what happened with Lucasfilm when when The Mandalorian season 2 came out and we had that deep fake Luke Skywalker scene, and it was yay, it happened, Luke. And then a bunch of guys went on YouTube and said, hey, this isn't looking as cool as it is. Let's do a couple deep fakes with this and let's make it look better. Those guys got hired, and then they made almost the best episode of not even almost, arguably the best episode of the Book of Boba Fett, and an immaculate Luke Skywalker. Like, to the point where it's hard to not be like, oh, you mark that guy is how old now?
Right.
What?
Yeah.
So do that. Let these guys make this their passion. Let these guys come out with these amazing tools like Xenia, like Dolphin. And if they work, buy it from them. If the source code doesn't exist anymore, and a lot of it doesn't, and that's an ongoing issue with certain games getting remasters. Like I know with Square Enix, they admitted to having some source code issues, and that's why they couldn't properly remake certain games, and why they had to like upscale backgrounds and redo model. And like, I get it, but if there are people who do the work for you, utilize that work.
Definitely. And, and it's not like PlayStation or, these companies haven't done this before. Again, take example, the PlayStation Classic. That uses an open source emulator. And people found that out real quick because it was easily hacked, and people are packing their own games on it and improving performance. So, it's not like it hasn't been done. It can be done. It should be done. It's not being done.
Yeah. And that's the biggest frustration about it, is that it is literally, it's like, you want to make your fans happy, do stuff like that. Don't kill these projects. Like, if the project exists, like if a group of fans want to come out and make this beautiful Final Fantasy IX remake, and I'll pull up a photo right here of this work that this guy did, and then he had to like apologize and say, oh, I can't release it, I can't do anything. It was called the Moria Project, and it was quite literally. Let me find a picture of. Oh, that's part of the Memorial Project again, because it's so beautiful. There's so many instances where they like, oh, we're just not letting this exist, and these devs they make these beautiful pieces of work because just they love the medium. and that's all it is. They just love the medium, and let the people who have that passion have it. Don't kill their
Definitely.
passion. Don't.
Definitely. No,
Like here's
I completely agree. I completely agree.
Here's a picture of the Memorial Project, and mind you, this was and people are like, oh, that's got to be fully rendered. This guy made it on like Unreal Engine 4, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and it was quite literally everything that you would want in a Final Fantasy IX remake.
Oh, definitely.
And I see this, and I'm like, and then you have all these rumors that Final Fantasy IX is actually getting an official ground up remake from Square,
Mm-hmm.
which is fantastic. But if it doesn't look like this, I'm going to be mad.
Yeah, then what's the point?
If they killed that project so that because they were making their own,
it has to look better than that.
It has to look better than that, and I hope it does, because the Final Fantasy VII remake is better than any Final Fantasy VII mod that was on Steam up until that point.
Mm-hmm.
So, balls in your court, Square. You got to make it.
And that's very, like you said, that's very similar to what happened with the Grand Theft Auto mods. You know, they got shit canned for the definitive trilogy, and look how those came out. You know, they used AI to enhance everything, and how did that turn out? You know,
the only time I've ever seen AI being truly amazing was with Grand Theft Auto's that one video that came out where they did AI. Do you remember that video?
Yes.
Where the guy let me find it. It was this experimental AI tool that made the game look photoreal to a level that
mm-hmm.
I hope this is what they're doing with Grand Theft Auto 6, because the guy they did it on their computer, just an experimental mm-hmm. AI tool. They ran the game, and on the
night and day.
Like,
look at that.
Good Lord. If I'm playing a game that looks like that, and my wife walks in and says, "What are you watching?" That's when you know that they've succeeded. Like, that's what I want. Like, I want a game. I want the uncanny valley to disappear.
Yeah.
I want it to be so good looking that it's better than real life. That would be a fun way to play some of these games. And mind you, some of the games that have that fantastical element to it, I want it to stay that way. Like mm-hmm. Final Fantasy IX. I don't want it to look photoreal. I want it to look goofy and cartoony, because that's how that world is made.
That's the tone.
But for Grand Theft Auto, when the game is not supposed to be stylized and it's supposed to be real looking, do it.
Do it.
Like, imagine Ghost of Tsushima in a photoreal style. Oh. Or any of the Assassin's Creeds in photoreal, or Fallout with that kind of a thing.
Oh, man. That would be...
That's insane.
That would be amazing.
That's too good.
Yeah. So with Xenia again, what I would recommend for folks right now is, if you want these apps, they're not difficult to achieve and obtain. With Xenia, I honestly would tell people to hold off for now. The compatibility is not quite there yet. This is very much a proof of concept, a little taste, a little vertical slice. It is just a proof of concept. It works, and I would say maybe give it a couple more months. Wait for a 2.0 build or a 3.0 build. I would just relax right now. Don't worry about getting these emulators, especially the Xenia emulator running. It's not perfect. It's far from it. And just enjoy the games that you're allowed to play right now. And then once those emulators are fixed, definitely pack them on. And in the future, we will be offering a tutorial on how to do that as well.
Yeah, because once it's worth talking about on a scale like that, 100%. That's something that needs to be. I feel like people would love it, and they need to see it. They need to play it.
So keep watching these episodes, and maybe with episode number 5 or 10, we'll do a tutorial.
Yeah, I mean, because again, we're not breaking any rules by showing people how to read random files. So
right, and that's all we're doing. So
exactly. It's like the age-old argument that illegal streaming, right? It's the action of streaming isn't illegal, but the hosting of the files is. So they can't actually get mad at you for doing the mod work or the emulation work, because there's nothing to be mad about. It's just a user utilizing something that's out there. But the people that are doing the work, yeah, that's where the problems come from, and they can get shut down.
Yeah.
But like my Super NES, SNES Classic, like not illegal to mod it, not illegal to run all those ROMs on it. The ROM site that I pulled those ROMs from got closed because they were ripping them. So that's why they got in trouble. So
yeah. And if anything, this should show Microsoft that the demand for backwards compatibility is stronger than ever. I think that when they walked away from that, they really did themselves a disservice. And their publishers too. That's a golden opportunity to sell, digital copies of old games again. So yeah, definitely a missed opportunity. If I was Microsoft, I would be offering these developers a job.
Yeah, I mean, because like you said multiple times, the market for retro gaming is there. And mind you, it's never going to die. If people say that, oh, they have to kill this version because they're remaking it, I have bought so many different versions of Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9 because every version is better than the last. I remember the PlayStation remakes of 7, 8, and 9 when they just cleaned them up. I was like, oh yeah, I have it on this version, which is fantastic. I bought the PS1 version that you could buy and then play on the PS3 back when it was just like a straight ROM essentially. But then when they redid it and they actually redid the character maps for like Squall and all those characters, I was like, yeah, I'm going to buy it again. $20, why not? It looks prettier.
Right.
And they added these little features where I can just auto win battles and I can run the game at 6 times speed. Hell yeah, I'm going to do this. Like I'm going to beat Final Fantasy 9 in 30 minutes. Let's do this. Like like the fans that love these games still buy the remakes because they're still good and the quality of life improvements are fun and they're great. So just because they're pirating or they're ROMing or anything like that, that doesn't mean that they won't still buy the product. It means that they're doing this because there's no product to buy.
Exactly. So, I think if a lot of these games were on the marketplace, emulators wouldn't be so desperate to get these games working on their consoles. Be on the lookout for more Xenia updates. We will be covering them more in the future, for sure. And Taylor, I think that's going to be it for us today.
That's a good way to end it. I mean, right now with this new show, The Culture Gamer, you are the host. You can decide who you want to be your co-host for that day, or if you want to have anyone else in particular. That's all you. So nice. If the fans like this conversation that I had, I'll probably try to come on some more.
We're definitely going to have you on a few more times for sure.
My co-host Michael from the Culture Nerd podcast is also a giant gamer, so he may want to pop in sometimes.
Definitely.
I know that half of the staff of the Culture Nerd are huge gamers. We might get TJ one of these times because he'll talk to you about whatever he wants. He loves Super Nintendo and things like that. Like he will. You talk to him about the prospect of a Chrono Trigger remake, you'll get him talking for like an hour.
We're definitely going to get TJ on the show, probably either the next one or the one after for sure, because that's a must. TJ is a cool guy.
But do you want to wrap it? Or do you want me to wrap it since it's kind of the same format?
Yeah, I'll wrap it.
All right.
Do you have anything you want to shout out real quick, Taylor?
No. Now that the show is live, Monday through Friday, TCN Podcast has a show. So if you like them, come to them. If you want us to change something, let us know.
Because they're going to keep coming. Yeah. You could follow Taylor and myself over at The Cultured Nerd. You can also follow me down here at Moses IVVIOC on Twitter and Instagram. And that's going to be it. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next week. Ta-ta for now.
And for those of you who want to support us and help us do what we do, head over to patreon.com/theculturednerd. This show specifically will have its own special tier. So if you want to help Jason with this show, head over there. For those of you who do support us currently, the host was Jason. Patreon supporters that are listed are the ones that support the network. So thank you so much for helping us keep the lights on. And for those of you at home, go ahead, scan that QR code, like and subscribe to the channel, and we will see you all next week.
Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good one.